Hey guys, Stuart Tomlinson, Warrior Collective, back once again with Inside Chat. I hope you're well. Today I'm joined by a legend of the martial arts scene, American martial artist Erik Paulson. Erik, how are you today?
I'm fine, thanks. Thanks for asking. Thanks for having me on.
Oh no, it's a real honor and a pleasure to have you on. Obviously, I've been doing martial arts for a long time, but nothing like the length of time that you have. And growing up, I've followed your work and career for a long time. So I'm like I said, it's a real genuine honor and pleasure to be able to speak to you like this. Now, I've read up and followed you for a long time, so I know quite a bit. But for those people who listen or watching who may not know as much as I do, I know you started martial arts in the 70s. How did you find martial arts?
I was playing sports, three different team sports, and I wanted an individual sport. And my mom decided to bring me to my elementary school where they had a local judo class, and I started training in judo. And we had competitions, and I won both competitions both years in a row, and then that kind of kick-started things. And then I got into a street fight when I was in sixth grade, and it ended up being a hair pulling contest. And it's out in the snow and the ice, and we both ended up on the ground. And so I said, I think I should learn how to strike. And I went to my first Bruce Lee movie in the movie theaters back then, and I think Game of Death was in the movie theaters, and I also got to see a private viewing of Enter the Dragon at a special event, and it was those two movies that got me kind of sold on it. So I went to the store and I bought all of Bruce Lee's fighting methods, and I bought the books, and then the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, and then I started Taekwondo sport, competitive sport karate when I was in sixth grade. And then it was in eighth grade that my dad said, hey, you should really get involved in a real combat sport. That would be boxing. So he brought me down to the local boxing club, Golden Gloves Boxing. I went to Fred Moore Junior High and started boxing. And it was that, and then the karate, and then I decided to fight in full contact karate. And full contact karate was 8 kicks above the waist per round, and then mostly boxing. So that's how it all started.
So we talk about martial arts journeys. Your journey has been obviously you've been doing it a long time, but you've had a real history in martial arts. I mean, you've touched upon it there, but you've trained in a multitude of different styles and kind of gone across a huge spectrum of different disciplines. I understand that you trained probably around after that point under Dan Inosanto. Is that right?
Yeah, I actually got hooked up with Rick Fay in Minnesota in 1982 during my karate days. And Rick Fay did a seminar at our school, and I watched the seminar, and I said, what is all that you're doing? It looks like boxing, and there was some trapping and some destructions. And he said it's a mixture of Kali, JKD, and my teacher is Dan Inosanto, and I come from the JKD lineage. And I said, do you have a school here? And he goes, Minneapolis. And it was right then when I quit karate and I started going down there to learn that. And it was just a different world. I was doing point karate stuff for years and boxed and did judo, but it was the actual combination of the Kali and the trapping and the Junfan. And Rick was a great teacher and full of energy, and he had great jokes, and it all made sense to me. And not only that, you just got to wear tennis shoes and shorts, and didn't even worry about an academy T-shirt at the time. It was just, it was in an old building in Minneapolis, and it was pretty cool.
I mean, I guess as well back then there would have been certain instructors, even to the it still happens this day in certain styles that would encourage you not to go beyond that style, beyond that school. So, but you one of the You've always been into cross training and seeking out how to improve. And how did you get on that path then? Because a lot of people at that point in the 70s would have been quite rigid about the style that they trained in.
Well, I already came from that background because I did judo and then boxing, then karate. And then I got involved in Aikido also at the same time I was boxing in 8th grade. So Aikido and then later Aiki Jiu-Jitsu. And then I got involved in the Kali. And then also in 8th grade at the same time I was a gymnast. So I got into gymnastics. And then I would lift weights to get stronger for gymnastics. So I was already doing cross training. And my brother was a wrestler. And he said, you should learn how to grapple because all grapplers can be kickboxers. So we always would have wars in the living room. And there were basically fights. And then, I was grappling, not knowing what I was doing, but I was grappling then, having to wrestle with my older brother. So it was that. And then when we would spar, we had a rule that we'd never punch each other in the face. And then one time we got mad and somebody hit somebody in the face and the whole fight started. And that was basically definitely early MMA was a striker trying to kick someone in the head and then getting taken down and then fighting on the ground and then standing back up. And then we would buy boxing gloves at Christmas. We would get boxing gloves for Christmas, and then my brother Brad and I would have boxing matches in our basement, and then later on I'd invite my local friends over, and I would have a couple friends, and we'd put on the gloves and we'd play around. And then pretty soon everyone says, hey, Eric's got boxing gloves. So then after high school, I had all my high school, and we made a ring in the backyard, and they said, you are the referee. So I got to referee, all my friends just beating the smack out of each other. And it's funny because the guy that everyone used to pick on used to beat the just living snot out of everybody. Nobody had any idea that this guy, his nickname was Horse, but his name was John Lauber. And everyone he was everyone's friend, but they'd tease him, but he's a great athlete. And he just mopped the floor with everybody, and nobody expected this guy to be that good. And it was just that whole thing, and then there was always fights in school, and so I think that was kind of it, and the big question is who would win, a karate guy, because the mysterious black belt, he knows an ancient martial art, versus a wrestler, a guy that doesn't give a crap and just going to shoot in and take you down and pound your face. Pretty interesting. Those were interesting days, and that was the early 80s.
So obviously this was all before the internet came along, and obviously before mixed martial arts was a term. So I mean, Jeet Kune Do really, it was an early MMA, wasn't it? It was an early transitioning between ranges, using different aspects of martial arts. Is that what encouraged you to go from there towards obviously where you ended up, which is being known obviously as one of the godfathers of mixed martial arts and grappling, but also Shooto in Japan. I was in Japan not long ago, speaking extensively to Enson Inoue, about Shooto, and that's another world over there as well. How did you find yourself going from that Jeet Kune Do then into Jiu-Jitsu and MMA?
Okay, so I was training at the Jet Center in LA in 1989. I would drive from Palm Desert. I moved to the desert, Palm Springs area first, before I moved to LA to get my culture shock over. And I said, hey, I'm going to drive. So I was driving to Tim Tackett's and training in his garage in Redlands while I was still doing karate in Palm Springs, and I was boxing there. So I was going from Palm Springs to LA, and in LA I went by the academy, but it was closed. So I was going to the Jet Center and do private lessons with Benny the Jet Urquidez. And then all of a sudden I drove by the academy and I saw in the window there was a poster for a shoot wrestling seminar. and it had a picture of Yuri Nakamura striking, kicking, grabbing somebody, suplexing him, hitting a double leg, and then on the ground it showed him doing a bunch of submissions. And I said, wow, that looks interesting, right up my alley. And so at that time, I was also in 1986. I also had started training with Royce and Jorge and Gracie in their garage, and I got a private with Higa Machado, and then later with Rickson Gracie, I was with him for a while, and then I was also from then with the Machados also. But I was doing that, and then I got an opportunity. When Yuri Nakamura came and did a seminar in 1988 at the Inosanto Academy, I took his seminar, and I found out in 1988, 1989 that I really liked it. And I said, hey, are there any fights or anything like that of this sport in Japan? And he brought a videotape out, and he gave it to me. He said, yeah, watch this. And I watched it, and immediately I looked at him and I said, I would like to fight in Japan. He said, really? And I go, yeah, really. I go, I want to fight. I want to try. I said, I do mixed martial arts, and I've been doing it for a long time. I just want to see how I would fare. And that's how it all started. And then Yuri said, you'll need a training partner. So we had class going on, but he said, I think I'm going to choose your training partner. It's going to be Chad Stahelski. And Chad and I were training partners at the Inosanto Academy. And he was originally under Burt Richardson from the USC, University of Southern California, USC. And he was training with Burt there, and then he became my training partner. We both did a Kali seminar together, and then Chad was going to film school, graduated, and then him and I ended up fighting in Japan together. And then during our training and preparing for our fights, I accidentally broke his shoulder or his elbow, and then also his knee. And he said his knee was his last straw because he had to get a cadaver part put in his leg. So he said, I'm retiring from fighting. I'm going into stunts full time. Follow me. And at that time, I had already done a couple things. I went and worked on the movie American Ninja 5, a great blockbuster, by the way. And then you've never seen it. Anyways, it went straight to video. Anyways, did American Ninja 5 and then some other things. And then all of a sudden, the whole group of guys that I was with all started getting into doing movie stuff, like stunt stuff. And then after that, Burt Richardson got some parts in some things. Jeff Amata was already involved in Big Trouble in Little China and all these other movie parts. Guru Dan had already done stuff. And I wasn't trying to follow any footsteps. I just had the opportunity. I was a bartender, and David Bradley, who was American Ninja after Michael Dudikoff, he came into my bar, and he was dating our maitre d', which is a girl at our bar. And she introduced me to David, and David was this actor, martial artist guy, and from Texas. He was a karate guy. And he said, hey, I'm going to Venezuela to do a movie. Would you like to go with me? And I go, what would you have me do? And he goes, you could be my assistant and maybe do some stunt work or stuff. So I was like, that sounds great. I'd be more than happy. So I went to Venezuela and I worked on American Ninja 5. And then from then on, that's how the movie stuff kicked in, and we were all there, and I was kind of going back and forth, getting little parts here and there, doing stunts and working on movies like Baywatch. I was on 10 episodes of Baywatch, and some other movies, The Abyss. I was an extra in the movie The Abyss, and I got some other parts, little bit parts in other movies and stuff like that, and nothing big yet. And I don't know, it's weird because when all your friends are doing the same thing, you guys are all hustling for the same parts, and it was just kind of very odd. And I wanted to do something that stood out and that was about me and not about me and everybody else. And that's why suddenly I got involved more so in the fighting. And Yuri brought Chad and I to Japan, and unfortunately I broke Chad his body, and he quit, and then I ended up asking him to be my coach, and he was my coach for my fights. He was coaching me, and then Yuri was still my teacher. And so Chad trained me for my fights and helped me to win the belt of Japan. And in the meantime, he created this entire fight group of guys. It was like an STX fight group of guys, and which later on he was making people choose their loyalty. And I was given the opportunity to either choose movies full time or fighting, and I was getting more phone calls for fights at the time, and I was in the middle of my fight career in great shape. So I chose that path, and he continued with his movies to later on becoming the director of John Wick 1 through 4, and also all the Matrixes, and then he created his own, him and Damon created their own stunt crew called 8711, and they both opened the school of stunt. It was a stunt training school, and then they started incorporating more and more martial arts, and then they created protocols, and then they split, and then Damon went his way and Chad kept 8711. Damon's still doing a lot of great work on movies. Wonder Woman, he did Wonder Woman. I know he did Batman versus Superman, and he's done a lot of great movies. And so for me, it was my time. I got to travel with Gurudan and Asano as his assistant, and he sat me down and he said, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And I was like, "Well, what's up, Guru?" And he goes, "You know, the martial arts life is a good life, and the seminar life is a good life, and I feel like you might be at crossroads with the movie stuff versus the martial arts stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm still in LA for that reason, and I'm trying to make a choice on what I'm going to do." And he goes, "Well," he said, I lead a great life. I'm very happy and content with my life." He goes, "You're no longer a fighter. So when you're done with your fight career," he said, "then you become a coach and a teacher." And he said, "And that gives you back tenfold of what you were as a fighter, because now you can develop champions, and you can train other people and go through victories and losses with other people, not just yourself." And so now it's kind of the progression as a fighter turned coach. And then for you to continue to do seminars would be good, because you could talk about experience and stuff. Because it would be a good thing. You could write and do DVDs and write stuff. And he goes, that would be a good avenue for you. And it kind of answered my question, because I was so stuck. Like I was kind of stuck, because I was still trying to hit the movie stuff, not hard, but I was still trying to get movie work and do the fighting and the seminar stuff. And I was like, I guess at that time, because you're just hustling, you just take what you could get. It doesn't matter if it's an intensive, someone flies in from out of country and trains with you for 10 hours, or if you go to do a seminar somewhere, or if you get a movie part, it's all work. Work. So for me, it didn't matter. But Chad laid it on the line and said, "You need to be loyal with one or the other." And I go, "Well, I want to do martial arts, and I want to fight and do movies." He goes, "No, you got to make a choice." And I go, "Why?" Bridget Baby Doll Nielsen, she never made a choice. And Kathy Long never made a choice. And Rob Kamen, he's doing both. And then, let's see, Benny the Jet, he's still doing both. And Dennis Kiefer, he's still... And he goes, "For you, you need to make a choice. You're either all in or all out." And I go, "Well, I guess right now I'm just going to fight." So, yep. So I remember I called Greg Barnett, who is the head of Stunts Unlimited, and he's the one that got me my SAG card on Baywatch. And I told him that I had to temporarily stop doing stunt work, because I need to focus on my fighting. And it was sad, because he was disappointed. You could hear him. He said, "Well, you got to do what you got to do." And I was very disappointed and sad that I had to tell him that I was going to stop doing stunts right then. And then Chad continued after that, because Chad and I did Baywatch together. I got a phone call at the Academy. We auditioned for this part, and they called me. So I used my middle name, and my middle name is James. And I remember we were all training in class, and we get a phone call. Mrs. Inisano answered the phone. She goes, Damon, there's a phone call. Someone's calling. She goes, come in the office. Damon goes in the office. He goes, what's up? She goes, somebody's calling from the set. They need their a fighter tomorrow for the TV show Baywatch, and they're asking for Eric James. And they like his look. And so Damon walks out of the office. He's looking around. He goes, who the heck is Eric James? He's like, who's Eric James? And they're all looking around. They go, I don't know. Who's Eric James? And I go, oh, that's me. That's me. And they go, what? And I go, yeah, that's my middle name. I use it for acting and stunts. And they go, what? And I said, yeah, well, I changed my last name to my middle name so I knew if there was a phone call for Eric James, it was for a movie. And if it was Eric Paulson, it was for fighting. And it's funny because I got the part, and then they said, who do you have your size you could bring with you that fights like you? And I said, Damon or Chad. And they said, who's your size? And I go, oh, probably Chad. He's taller. Yeah, Chad. So I brought Chad on Baywatch with me for that episode, and then he continued on, and it was 10 episodes after that one, I got my SAG card from that. He already had his SAG card. And then just went from there. And I chose martial arts, whoop, and he went straight to the movie stuff. And he went from a stuntman to a coordinator to a director.
Yeah, I mean, I remember all the American Ninja films. You know, I grew up being a fan of Michael Dudikoff, and you know, I remember following all the sequels as well. And I do remember you in the Abyss, and yeah, back then as well. It wasn't actors learning martial arts, was it? It was martial artists who were in the films because they had to perform their own stunts. It's not like nowadays where, you know, they use CGI and stunt doubles a lot more for actors, so they don't have the same martial arts experience. But back then, it was much needed to be that martial artist for those roles, wasn't it?
Yeah, yep, that's for sure. So, yeah, it's times have changed a lot. I had a good time doing it, and during that time period, I really loved it. But your life has to move on, and you've got to choose. And all my friends, they went into the movie stuff, and I just thought, you know, if you're going to have a martial arts school or a fight team, you got to be there for your guys. If you're going to be married and have a family, you got to be there for your family. So I don't know what type of life it would be like if I was on the road half my year. I know. I talked to Chad, and he was gone all but 2 weekends or 2 weeks out of the entire year, and he has a beautiful house in Manhattan Beach, and he said, I've only been at my house 2 weeks out of the year. I thought, that's strange. I'm a Cancer, so I like being at home. I enjoy my home life. So I don't know. Everyone's different. I like the adventure. I like to travel, and I do travel, and I still do all the time. But I just can't imagine being gone from home that long. That's a long time to be away. Even a month or 2 months. I was gone for a weekend, and it felt like I'd been gone. Things had changed in that amount of time too. So.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you there. I'm definitely. I like my travel, but I like to be. I like my stability and routine as well for training and everything else. And that kind of leads me on to the next part is moving obviously away from the fighting and the stunts and the movies into your role as a coach and as Guru Dan said, it's a big thing to be a coach and giving back, and especially a coach of your experience and your background. I mean, you've coached so many amazing people. I've spoke to, just last week I spoke to Rick Young, and he was telling me a story about yourself and why he was so why he looked up to you so much. So that a lot of people around the world speak very highly of you. How did you find the transition then from those roles into being a coach? Because now obviously you've developed these amazing systems from your own experience. How has been? Oh, it's a bit of a long question, but how is the role of being a coach for you?
I didn't want to coach. I wanted to fight. I wanted to fight and fight and fight until I couldn't fight anymore. But I didn't want to fight to the point where I was fighting and losing or getting broken. And it wasn't to the point where my knee was going out on me. I was having problems doing long distance runs, and I lost some training partners. A lot of my training partners went into movies full time. So now I'm in search. I've like Leonard Nimoy in search of the ultimate training partner, and I was looking for. It's funny because they just remade that show again called In Search of. And I was in search of the ultimate training partners, and there was not a gym. Like, these guys don't have any idea how lucky they are to have a gym that they can come to and get boxing, wrestling, judo, sambo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, catch wrestling, ground and pound, MMA. They can get the full gamut, strength and conditioning, massage. They can get it all at our place. They don't know that I had to go search and find each coach and train with each person individually throughout the days or the week. And I had to get a wrestling coach, I had a jiu-jitsu coach, I had a shoot wrestling coach, I had a boxing coach, I had a Thai boxing and savate coach. And then you got to put it all back together. You got to tear it apart and put it back together. And that was one formula that I found that I didn't do quite as much, because there weren't so many guys that were that good at sparring MMA. You might get a good striker, a good wrestler, but you don't get a guy that's a good striker and a good wrestler. Or you get a guy that's good at wrestling and he's horrible at submission. Or you get a guy that's great at submission and horrible at takedowns. And then you get a guy that's maybe good at takedowns and ground, and he has no striking ability. So it was hard to find good training partners, and that was my thing too, is trying to find good training partners. So everything was compartmentalized. I had to go to kickboxing separate, then the grappling. The grappling would be the evening, the striking would be in the day. And then I would try to combine and put things together and get guys so we would have rounds of MMA, but in the early days, I didn't have guys that were that good at MMA. They weren't that good at MMA, so it was either one or the other. So it was shoot boxing, it was kickboxing, it was boxing, and then it was all clinch work. And then in the night, it would be takedowns and just ground submission. And it was like, then I had to grab a bag and create a ground and pound. But in my beginning stages of fighting, there was no ground and pound. You weren't even allowed to ground and pound in Shooto in the beginning stages. It wasn't till later. And they said, a lot of these guys, they can't handle they're not great submission guys, so you got to add striking on the ground, so they changed the rules. So the rules changed, and then I was fighting, and I was broken, and I wasn't getting the fights I needed, as many as I needed, and then I kind of fell into the whole political thing where they didn't want me to cross other organizations to fight, but I wanted to fight as a fighter. I was getting 1 to 2 fights a year, and as a pro fighter, that's not enough fighting. And so I was trying to compete in jiu-jitsu tournaments or wherever I could compete, trying to take boxing or I didn't fight in the MMA in America because it hadn't really been established, and when it first was established, in a lot of these little shows, there was no money. It was $500 a fight, and I was fighting in Japan, in Shooto, and the money wasn't very good then, and it was fighting more for honor than it was for anything else. And I wasn't allowed to go to Pride or to anything because Pride was just being developed, and there was talk that in Shooto that you can't go to Pride because a lot of the fights in Pride, some of them were predetermined. And I was like, and they showed me some fights, and I said, that doesn't look real. And they go, well, we're trying to tell you that we don't believe it's 100% real. And so, not all. I mean, there's a lot of real fights, but then there's a few that are probably maybe a work or a predetermined fight or something like that, or someone's going to carry somebody, and that's considered a job or a work. So Shooto said, we are 100% real, and you're a shooter, so you cannot fight in these other leagues that have fights that may be a work. So they would then allow me to fight anywhere else until I fought in America in extreme fighting, and then I fought in World Combat, which is bare knuckle. And then I had a fight in UFC, and I was going to fight either Phil Baroni or Matt Lindland. That was a fight they offered me, Phil Baroni or Matt Lindland. But I just did a tour in England, and I was there for a month, and I came back, and they go, "You got a week to train," and I go, "I'm not in shape. I'm not going to fight the UFC. I'm not going to make my debut in the UFC with 1 week of training. I'm not stupid." And they said, "Well, this may be your only opportunity." And I go, "So be it. I'm not just going to make a stupid performance because I'm out of shape, because I'm grubbing the money. I'm not about. It's not about the money. It's about being in shape. I'm a fighter. I'm already not making money, so I'm not going to go, 'Oh my gosh, really? You'll pay me $25,000? Oh, I better fight.'" It wasn't about the money. It was about my performance, because. So you have a shitty performance and you take a $25,000 payout, big deal. And I knew you're not in fight shape in a week, by the way, just to let you know. If you're in your D class, B, C class, let's say you're in your C class shape, you put A, B, C, D, A number 1, 2, B, 3, C, or D, you don't fight at C or D. You've got to get up to a B at least. And you don't get up to a B class fight in 1 week of training. So I didn't do it. So anyways, as time progressed, I ended up, so in about 2000, after I fought one time in Hawaii, because they said, "We don't want you to fight in Japan anymore, we want you to fight in America." So I fought in Hawaii, and the amount of money that I got paid was so low that I go, I can't even afford to fight anymore. I have to have 2 bartending jobs, teach private lessons, do privates, do movies, get work when I can, just to survive, and then fight. So I fought at Super Brawl in Hawaii, and then right after that, I formulated my exit plan. I wrote a letter of resignation, and I'm sitting there in a midlife crisis now, in the year 2000. Going, okay, I'm stopping fighting right now. And someone goes, "Why are you stopping fighting?" I go, "Because I can't afford to fight, and my knee's bad. I need to have surgery on my knee, so I'm just gonna see what happens." And then out of nowhere, Ken Shamrock calls me, and he goes, "I heard you retired from fighting, and I want to offer you something." And it was my friend that called me and said, "Hey, Vernon Tiger White's here, and he wants to have a sparring partner. Would you like to come down and spar with Vernon?" And after I retired from fighting, I was still sparring 40 rounds a week. Everyone said, "Are you fighting?" I go, "No, I'm just trying to stay in shape." So I was sparring 40 rounds a week, because I loved it. And so I went down and sparred with Vernon, and then he told Ken that it might be a great idea to hire Eric as a coach because he knows the same type of stuff that we do. And then Ken said, you remember more than I've forgotten. And he goes, I want to talk to you about hiring you to train me for the UFC. And I didn't even want to be a coach. I still wanted to fight. But I trained Ken for 8 months, and he fought Chemo, and he won. And then I trained him for a couple other fights, and he fought. He ended up fighting Tito, and he fought Tito, I think, 3 times. And then finally I was like done with that. And he hired someone else to come in for his camp because I'm old school. When I train people, I train them like I used to train. So you have to run. You got to hit pads. You got to spar. You got to grapple. And he never had a problem with that, but he had 5 shoulder surgeries at the time. And so we couldn't go through with the camp like we were supposed to. And I couldn't throw new guys at him. He could only, and instead of running, he would go on ellipticals and treadmills instead of going outside and running the hills. We used to run the hills. And, when you're getting older, that's what you have to do. You have to run. You can't do like ellipticals and treadmills and stuff. I truly believe you need to run. It's the best. If I have a saying that if you're a fighter and if you're not running, you're not fighting. Because guys are like, hey, are you running? They're like, yeah. And I go, are you running or not? Because if you're not running, you're not fighting. I'm not going to allow you to fight because you're not going to be able to perform. Unless you're sparring a million rounds, and that's the same thing. But it's still the running helps you to win your fights faster because it gets you in that mental bliss. Because running is moving meditation. So in the year 2000, I became a coach, and I didn't even want to coach. And it was right there I trained Ken, and when I was done with Ken's camp, Josh Barnett heard that I had started to train fighters, and he asked me if I would train him. And so he would have 9 fights in a year in Pride. 9 fights in a year. 9 fights.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? Obviously it comes across in everything that you've said now, and everything that I know about you, how much of a passion it was for you to be a fighter. But for someone who was a fighter through and through, you've transitioned to being a coach, but not only a great coach, but also a great producer of systems. You've kind of you've transitioned from being a world-class fighter into being a world-class coach, but not just coaching individuals, creating systems so that other people can benefit from your experience. How did you find yourself doing that then, creating these systems from the breadth and depth of the experience that you've got?
I was hustling as much as I could. I had 2 or 3 bartending jobs. I was doing private lessons. I was a massage therapist. I would do as many privates as I could. And I had a gym in my garage. I would teach private. I would train people on the heavy bags and things like that. And I worked at a health club. I was a stretch instructor, and I taught at the college. I had little knick-knack jobs here and there, and it wasn't until I started to do a little bit of seminar stuff, and I traveled with Guru Dan, and it was through traveling with Guru Dan it kind of got me out and exposed to all of the Inosanto lineage students. And at the time I was training jiu-jitsu and shoot wrestling, which most people so I wasn't allowed to teach jiu-jitsu, but I was allowed to teach the shoot wrestling, and a lot of places never had seen the shoot wrestling, and I said it's really great because you guys all do Thai boxing, some of you do judo, sambo, and wrestle, and I said, and it's got a boatload of ground attacking, a lot of submissions from catch wrestling, and I said it's a combination of wrestling mixed with clinching and kickboxing. And I said, you guys would probably like it because it's combining and mixing the arts that you guys are already training in. And a lot of people didn't have a chance to come to America to train with Sensei Yuri Nakamura in the Shudo. And we had, in the early days, we had competitions. So I said, a lot of you guys, you should train and get good and train where you're at. I'll show you some training methods, and then you guys get good, and then you come to America, and then come to the academy, and we're going to have amateur tournaments, and you guys can all join in. And we started doing that, and I did that. I was actually one of the referees and the promoters after Yuri decided to stop doing it for a while, and then we had a guy get his leg broke. Guy shot in, hit a double leg, and he leg hooked the guy. Guy stepped back, and his femur snapped in half. And that was the end of the fights because of insurance liabilities. So we stopped that. And I said, well, let's have amateur fights at your guys' school. When I come out, we'll do a seminar. We'll do 3 days. I'll do a 1 or a 2 day seminar, and then right after that will prompt and prep everybody for the tournament we'll have on, let's say, Sunday. So Friday night we'll do a workshop. Saturday we'll do a big workshop, and then Sunday we'll have the fight. So we started doing that. I did it in Germany. I did it in Sweden. I did it in Princeton. We did it in New York. We did it all over the place. Minnesota. We started having some some of the places I just did seminars, but others I did, I actually had fights and we just would have it was like a smoker. Nobody's getting paid, but I said, let's team guys up, give me a list of fighters and let's find out the weights and let's put them together and we'll have a great competition. And then in the middle of it, I said, hey, I'm interested to start something called an Ironman. And they go, what's the Ironman? And I go, the Ironman is kind of what we do. It's a mixed martial arts tournament. And they go, what does that entail? And so I said, well, here's the first thing. We're going to do shoot wrestling. And then in the middle, for halftime, for the middle, we're going to have stick fights. Full contact stick fights. And they go, why is that? And I go, because it's real. And I said, we fight with a weapon or we fight empty-handed. So I said, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to have a round of boxing, 1 round of kickboxing, 1 round of shoot boxing, 1 round of shoot fighting, which is punching, kicking, throwing, takedown, 1 round of straight submission, and then 1 round of stick fighting. Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be very cool. I mean, and also I think there's not many instructors that could say that they could coach all of those things to anything like
That's
a
what we
level.
did. That was our background. That was what set us aside from other people. It was not that we were grapplers, but we also were kickboxers, and then we also could do shoot boxing, which was throwing from the clinch, and then we could just do submission. And then put a weapon in each other's hand, and we could either do single stick, double stick. We could do staff. We could do stick and dagger, double dagger, single dagger. And I was trying to choose the blowgun. They said, no, we're not going to allow that. No blowguns. Because I would just sit across the ring and shoot at them before they got to me.
So there's
said,
probably
"No,
a lot of
it's not
people.
gonna-"
There's probably a lot of people listening or watching who have come across this where, there's a bit of elitism or, like, oh, we do this, we're not going to do that. So some martial artists don't cross-train in those different styles. But you've kind of been at the high level across them all. What's your opinion on, essentially cross-training in all of these different ranges, including weapons? Because there's not many really that I know of in modern day times who are proponent of mixed martial arts and training weaponry.
Here's the deal. A real fight isn't just one thing. If you think a real fight is you're going to clinch up with the guy, you're going to take him down, it's going to be a grappling match, there's going to be punches thrown, there's going to be fingers in the eyes and fish hooks, there's going to be hair pulling and possibly biting and name calling. So that's going to be one part. It's probably going to start on the feet. So are you in a closed area, or is it an open area? Is there ability to move, or are you fighting in a hallway? You fighting in an elevator, right? Where are you fighting? Is there a cement pole in the middle? Is there a bar stool around? Are there any weapons you could use? What about sand? If there's sand on the ground, you could use that as a projectile. What about a chair, or is there a stick or a broomstick or a chain laying there, or is there a rope? It's stuff like that. It's your surroundings. I mean, that's what people are going to do. Does the guy have a blade on him? Does he have a crowbar? Does he have a baseball bat? Does he have a pool cue? Because you're going to deal with weapons, and that's the difference. Is most people will train all these empty hand martial arts, but they won't really address the weapon aspect. And I have to admit, I admire what Burt Richardson's doing, because a lot of people were not paying attention to what he was doing. They're like, oh, he's not really an MMA fighter, although he trains some MMA fighters, and he's not really this, he's not really that. And I said, it's the way he's combined everything, and the fact that he pressure tests everything with a weapon, and he's very affluent in all weapons, including guns. And he implements it against a real life situation, and then also does it on the ground too. Not only that, he has a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background. He trained with Yuri in shoot wrestling. He's one of the top instructors under Guru Dan Inosanto. and he was probably the number one guy under Pendecker, Paul Dutois. So he's got the whole CLOT stuff down too, and he's an instructor under Ajahn Chai. So uh, if we're looking at modern day world, not sport aspect stuff, I'm talking modern day stuff that we're dealing with now with all these riots and crap going on. You're fighting 2 and 3 and 5-on-1, and guys are carrying weapons. That's perfect. Perfect combination. So why wouldn't you learn jujitsu for the streets, or why wouldn't you learn how to use a weapon or disarm, or fight against 2 people or 3 people, and fight against guys that might have something to choke you with, or you're fighting on the ground. You're on the ground and there's 3 guys trying to kick your face in. That's a lot different. And the when you start stacking the odds against yourself, it's no longer athlete versus athlete. It's you versus the odds.
Yeah, and I guess I mean I was speaking to a while back, well not long ago actually, the man behind McDojo Life, and obviously I was speaking to him about the modern perception of certain coaches, and it comes down to what you've just said. Then, if you're testing something and you're legitimate in what you do, then actually this is the perfect way to expand upon your martial arts training. Is that a lot of people have this perception of weapons training to be in that category of, okay, these guys don't know what they're doing. We've seen it on the internet. They're doing no touch. They're being completely compliant. But actually, there are these core instructors such as yourself and the instructors that you mentioned,
Dog brothers.
who've got the legitimacy across all ranges. So it's a shame that there's this perception that it is quite across the board in some respects, and you see it all the time on forums. And because I travel and I cross over different martial arts styles myself, I'm constantly finding myself arguing with people who don't go outside of this area, that they think there's no relevance to training here and here. And I'm like, well, actually I don't agree with you. It's just what you're probably looking at is someone who is sticking to health training, combatives with no real sparring, and yeah, there's a relevance to martial arts for every single person, of course. But again, what you're saying is a completely different beast, isn't it?
Well, everyone and anything and everything is your teacher. If you have an open mind and an open heart, and you've dealt with reality, you should be learning from everything, and you should be quiet, not being braggadocious or boisterous, and just keep your eyes open and pay attention to details on some things about situations. Like, I'll sit and I'll watch guys get into a street fight, and I'll see how there's a protagonist, someone that's picking a fight, and then someone who's the victim, and sometimes it's just over something stupid, and a lot of times you can become diplomatic over things, and you can actually say, hey, I'm sorry if I've offended you. I don't want to fight you. I'll fight you if I have to, but I don't want to fight you. Maybe I could buy you a beer. We could sit down and have a discussion over this, or let's go have a cup of coffee and talk, and maybe we could actually talk this out. And then if they want to fight, then you might have to go, take care of business. But, I don't think that should be I think it's a lot easier to fight than it is not to fight. And that's why I like what Tim Tackett did for me at my camp, and he created this verbal jujitsu dialect, and basically it was how to diffuse a problem when somebody's trying to pick a fight with you.
How do you think then that weapons should come back into martial arts? How should people start training it and be confident that they're training it well, or they're coaching it well, or if they're a student, that they're being taught it well and properly?
I think, first of all, the Inosanto method of teaching the blade and the stick and all of the weaponry that he teaches, it's a Filipino mindset. And the way they train it is live. They just go live, because they have these Sinawali, which are your individual hitting patterns, and then they have the Sombrada, which is counter for counter drills that you do with people, and then you free flow, and then you stick spar like Dog Brothers, You know, you should probably learn to be a dog brother and to fight. You have to have, more than anything, a lot of testicular fortitude. You have to have, number one, bravery, and number two are the balls to go out there and really, you know, not be afraid to get it. You're going to get whacked in the head with a stick. You're going to get hit in the fingers and the hands, and you're going to get hit in the knees. And are you going to be able to hit back? And when you clinch and you clash, is grappling allowed? Because that's a real fight. If you don't have grappling in a stick fight, then you're just teaching people how to do, again, a stick sport. Real fighting is all ranges, is long. I'm not talking projectiles. I'm talking like long range would be a stick or a knife or a staff or a broomstick or a pool cue or a baseball bat. And then you got the middle and the close and the clinch, and then the punching and the kicking, and then the clinching, and then the takedown on the ground. And on the ground, you need to be able to impale each other, hit each other with the butt of the stick and the tip of the stick, and choke with the stick, and then punch the face and submit any part of the body. And that should be part of it. And if you do that, that sounds to me like the Dog Brothers.
Yeah, because I was just going to say, because in the UK, obviously, like you've mentioned, knife crime is a big thing, because we don't have guns. You know, they're not allowed at all anywhere in the UK. So knife crime is quite big. And I guess, you know, that's where people's get nervous, isn't it? Teaching anything to do with self-defense with a bladed weapon, because, you know, like I mentioned before, you don't get a second chance to defend yourself. And it's that balance, isn't it, between, you know, I guess people need to train it, but on the same token, they've got to train it properly. Otherwise, they're getting a false confidence. And this is what I mentioned earlier about that group of people who are teaching it without any real experience, causing more damage than harm.
Well, I think the understanding and even acknowledgement of a weapon is the first step. And, you know, if you're teaching somebody that's something maybe not quite so good, but it still may work, because, you know, you could teach somebody all this technical classroom stuff, but, you know, as soon as a gun comes out, all shit hits a fan and everyone goes hog wild and crazy and fights for the gun. Everything goes out the door. And the same thing when a knife comes out, it's like, whoa, now everything's for real. So unless you have high repetition, you know, a lot of times you're not going to really probably do what you've planned or trained to do in class, because you're learning a ton of stuff. That's why everything's based on repetition. The stick or the slice, they're gonna slice you, they're gonna thrust you, or they're gonna come down over the top. So the different angles of attack is important to teach. But the way that Guru Inosanto and all of his people that teach under him, I like that method because it addresses the stick and the knife, and the 12 areas of Kali, which is the projectiles also. The flexible weapons, because you could use your rope or you could use your jacket. You know, we're talking against a machete. The machetes are huge attacks in the UK and all over Europe, you know, because guys can't get their hands on guns and they walk in with a machete and nobody knows what to do. So they put their arm up and it sticks in their arm, and then they get hacked 25 times. They don't know how to disarm. They don't know how to clench. So they're getting hacked, you know, and it's that's a big one. But you know, just acknowledgement, you know, fight or flight mentality, you know, creating obstacles between you and your opponent. That's another one. And then also using all your surroundings. Like, is there a bar stool? Can you throw your neighbor in front of you? No, I'm kidding. That was a joke. But what can you use as a shield? Like, what could you use? You could use anything you can get your hands on to create distance. And aside from the fact that take off and run, if you could, you know, but when you're sitting there on your computer in Starbucks and a guy walks in to rob everybody with a machete and just starts hacking anyone that stands up, people are in horror. some people run away, and then there's others, only a brave few, that run straight into the heart of danger.
I mean, that brings me on to like this. You've got on your site, and it's written in a few places, and it says train hard, train smart, research, develop. So there's lots of, and also one of the things it says on there as well is share. And a lot of gyms, a lot of coaches I see, train hard, train smart, but you've obviously put on there research, develop. And then one that I've never seen on anyone on another one when I've been looking at different gyms is to share that knowledge. So what, obviously you've written that yourself. The train hard, train smart, I think is pretty universal for fighters. But what led you to put in the other aspects of those lines, those taglines?
Well, our objective as a martial artist is to inspire other people and to bring higher awareness to the people that are doing martial arts. And so your objective is to try to encourage people to expand their mind and think outside of the box. And, your life here is basically a flash in the pan. You're here and you're gone in no time. 50 years is not very long. 50, 60. I mean, are you going to be doing high level competitive martial arts over 60? Maybe, but you'll probably be doing more Tai Chi and Wing Chun and maybe some Kali. And, will you be kicking Thai pads at 70 years old? I don't know. Will you be on the ground? You can roll with people. You can roll with people till you die, the day you die. I had a guy that was late 80s who was getting on the mat and rolling regularly. You just couldn't crank on the guy, but I mean, he was on the mat moving around. So that's where you're looking where's the future? You can hit focus mitts. Kicking Thai pads might be a little bit different, because you can't kick waist level. Most of the guys not at 70 years old. I mean, do you see yourself at 70 kicking Thai pads?
Yeah, I'm probably, I'd like to think so, but the reality is obviously very different from the rose-tinted vision you have of yourself. It's like when you're a teenager and you think, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life till the day I die. And, it's naivety of not knowing or not having that experience to future it, isn't it, I guess? And so,
well, that's the advantage of having restrictions and also having the ability to change your martial arts. When I used to be able to kick people in the head with ease. I was a head kicker. And then the older I got, the less stretching I did. And I was kicking the legs and kicking the body all the time, but kicking the head was, I could kick the head if I get mad. This guy calls my gym and he goes, do you guys do kickboxing? And I said, you guys kick to the head? And I go, sure, when they're laying on the ground. And he hung up on me. The guy hung up. I was like, well, it's true. But we do head kick. Yeah, we teach and train head kick, but it's not we're not a head kick school. But yeah, of course, you kick the legs, you kick the body, you kick the head. But as you're getting older, you're kicking Thai pads, maybe kicking Thai pads because your hips starts getting a little stiff or whatever. Or for me, I had a neck surgery, so my hips, I could kick the legs, but kicking the body for me right now, my balance is off because of my neck. So I started kicking a kicking shield. What? Yeah. Instead of kicking the crap out of Thai pads, I just kick a kick shield. You can kick the legs really easy, and you can really kick hard with a kicking shield. The kicking shield was created by Dan Inosanto. It was used for football and American football, and they used it as a blocking dummy. So the linemen, when they go down, ready, set, hut one, hut two, they go hut hut, and then the guy would come up and he would block. And they would use it to block. It was to block so that the pass rusher or whatever could run to the end zone or to defend the quarterback. So they used that. It was a blocking. And then Guru Dan Inosanto said, hey, boy, this would be cool if you could kick this thing. And they started kicking it. And that's where the kicking shield came from.
Yeah, no,
Kick,
the kicking shields, obviously it's spread around the world now, isn't it? It's quite universal tool. It's funny to think about, like you said, where it actually came from.
the kicking shield for me was karate. I studied Taekwondo and some Japanese karate a little bit, and we always kicked the kicking shield: side kicks, spin back kicks, flying side kicks, roundhouse kicks. Uh, we didn't even use the paddles. The kick shields. And I remember we started getting focus mitts a little bit, but I said, man, I'd really like to learn how to hit these. And I bought the guide to martial arts training equipment. I think it was Guru Dan and Asano holding mitts, and it was all the different ways to hold. And I said, man, I have the real. So in 1976, I bought a pair of focus mitts, and I used to hold mitts for my brother when I was a little kid. And I still have one of those gloves in my office somewhere. And it's funny because, I didn't realize like the extent. Now there's all these different like popcorn holds and the Mayweather holds, and then or they call the Mexican style, and then they have other styles where it's more of a long style or Slavic style holding. And so some of the popcorn, like the Mayweather holds, sometimes I believe are more for the camera and more for the pad holder than they are for the boxer, because the pad holder is doing all the work. Have you ever seen that one?
Yeah. No, I know what you're on about.
Guy's not even punching. He's punching a quarter like this. And it's like, bap, 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 bap. And I'm like, that's for the pad holder. It's for speed hitting too, but you're not even punching all the way out. So it's like, but then you get the other guys that hold it nice and tight, and you have to punch full force and extend. And then when you miss, your elbow pops. I've seen that one too. I don't know. There's good pad holders all over. And, to be honest with you, as far as pad holding, I think pad holding is a relationship between the pad holder and the person hitting the pads. And like the best is to watch a fighter who's trained with his coach for so long, and the pad hold, because the pads are the icing on the cake. Guys that go, hey, I want to hit pads. It's like, okay, well, let that not just be your staple every day, because I got a guy that goes, I don't want to spar, I just want to hit mitts and hit pads. And I go, then you're telling me you want to do a cardio kickboxing class. And he goes, no. And I go, well, yes. Because training for a fight has to do with situations, repetitions, partner drills, heavy bag, shadow boxing, training with a partner, going back and forth. We call single, double, triple riposte drills, response drills, interruption drills, combinations, follow-ups, entries, and then counts, different counts. And then you kind of figure out what your favorite is. And then your pad holder being your coach that you have a relationship with, now you have a magnetic relationship with your coach, and you can kind of read everything that he's doing when he's holding pads. And so like in Thailand, I know that they call out the numbers. You go 1, 2, 3, 4. The other one, so they call it out. The second one is the pad hitter calls it out, like 1, 2, 3 or 3, 2, 3 or 2, 3, 2, or as far as pad hitting the pads. And then the other is the highest level, is they just punch or kick, and then the pad holder picks everything up. You got guys like, you watch some of these Thai coaches that have the belly belt and the Thai pads and the shin guards on. They take their shirts off, so it looks like they got their Thai shorts on, and the pad hitter he just hits, and then the pad holder just picks everything up and doesn't miss a shot. Doesn't hold the pads on the wrong side, and the guy kicks on this side. So that relationship, that pad holder is at a very high level that one guy, he goes, just go ahead and start striking and I'll pick everything up. But there has to also be a command. Like I was holding pads for a fighter, And I go, okay, jab, leg kick. And I had the pads and I held them down for a leg kick. And I go, jab, jab, leg kick, stepping head kick. And I backed up. So he goes, jab, and I held for the leg kick, and I'm bending over, and he kicks me right in the head. And I go, that's the third shot, not the second shot. And then I realized it was a wrestler that was hitting pads. It was a wrestler. He never hits pads. So, and he didn't. He also wasn't taught that you don't hit the pad holder because that's the second party. The fight is between you and the third party. The second party is the pad holder, your coach. You don't hit your coach. And so Rick Fay, because he was an expert pad holder and he taught Greg Nelson, Rick Fay was under Guru Dan Inosanto, and Rick's probably one of the best pad holders ever. And he created all these pad holds. And then Greg Nelson, all the Minnesota Collie guys, their pad holding is spectacular. Anyways, there's tons of guys, but then the guys that I've worked with. Anyways, he has a rule that if you hit the coach, like if you go jab, cross, hook, and you go double right kick, and then you accidentally kick my leg and then kick my other side of my body, and it's not in the count, you get a warning. You go, okay, yeah, hit the pads. And they go, oh, sorry about that. And they do it again, you get a free kick straight to the balls. And what it does, I think it's perfect, because what it does is when someone's being a douchebag, and because I see guys bully pad holders all the time. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
Where guys just start hitting and they just beat up the pad holder. Rick Fay created a rule that you get an immediate ball kick. You could actually score a touchdown and possibly kick the balls to the end zone, because douchebag Central decides that he wants to start hitting his coach and thinking that's okay and cool.
Well, I'm guessing that would put them off.
Well, you just say, hey, you hit me again, I'm not holding pads for you. I mean, there's several things. I could do an entire thing on holding pads and all the different stories I've had. We're getting kicked in the head. The guy missing, I go like this, and the guy misses and punches me in the face. Greg Nelson's fresh out of the hospital. He's battling cancer, and he gets out, and I was so excited. I'm like, Greg's getting better. He's healed, and he's back, and he's holding pads in my camp, and I was so excited. I go, Greg's back. I go, it's a miracle. Greg's back, and he's holding pads. And so Greg pulls guard on a guy, and the guy's supposed to just do a crisscross on the pad, and then he goes bang, 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 and pulls up, and then he punches Greg right in the eye. And all of a sudden, Greg's head hits the floor, and it looks like a goldfish. He's got one eye that's just, and I go, time, stop. This is in the middle of my camp, and I go, stop. I go, listen, Greg was on his deathbed, battling cancer, stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He beat it. He's at our camp. It's a miracle. He's holding pads. You would think that if somebody is hitting pads with a guy that just got out of the hospital that's recovering from that, stage 4, they wouldn't go crazy. And then they would also hit the mitts and not miss the mitts and punch him in the eye. He's sitting there the whole time we're talking. He had an ice bag on his eye. And, the guy just, how do you just miss, just stuff like that. I had another guy, he goes, hey, will you hold pads for me? And I go, no problem. And he was hitting pads. I was like, ding, ding, ding. I go, jab, cross, hook, cross. And then another cross, and another cross. So a couple bombs on the end, you go, bop, 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 bop. It's like a 4 count. And then you go, bang. And then you go one more time, bang. And all of a sudden, he paused for a half a second, and he punched a half second late. And I went 1, and he went like this, and I went like this, and my fingers went forward, and he punched the tips of my fingers have never been the same. I can't even hold that. He punched the tips of my fingers.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you as well, coming away from the pad holding for a second, is you're well known for catch wrestling, and obviously that some people have obviously know a lot about catch wrestling, but there's a lot of people that don't really understand catch, and they kind of not sure, what it is in terms of relation to jiu-jitsu, or so a lot of people know about judo and jiu-jitsu nowadays. Where do you see catch, if you had to explain it to someone, then how do you see catch as being, where does it fit into the grappling, I suppose, system range?
Well, catch wrestling is the ability to take someone down, not pull guard and go under somebody. But I'll tell you something, the catch that I teach, sometimes you go against a good wrestler and you cannot take him down. So you might have to pull guard and sweep him and then go on top. So, a lot of times jiu-jitsu will go under you and try to sweep you, and there's transitions. Catch wrestling is based off the takedown. And then on the ground, there's a lot of grappling. There's a lot of wrestling. So the turtle position is real popular. Overturn, not so much, but it's because guys don't want to go to their back. So you got to put them on their back. So some of the hardest guys I've ever competed and fought against were the guys that kept going to their knees and trying to go back on top. And you're fighting the whole time to put them on their back. It's a lot harder in a real fight when you're getting punched in the face to submit somebody from your back. Unless you're that game player that loves the guard, if you've got a great triangle, but even then your triangle and your closed guard is not punch proof. It takes approximately less than 3 minutes to punch through a closed guard. We've tested it. Close your legs, cross your feet. Okay, you're going to hold me, and all I'm going to do is just try to hit you. Don't let me hit you. And it takes about 2.5 minutes for me to start pounding your face. By the time I hit your body, hit your face, I'm trying to posture up. You're pulling me down. You're breaking me down. You're not uncrossing your feet. When you uncross your feet, then you could step over to possibly half guard. You could back out. You could stand up. You could possibly get through the guard, or you could attack the legs. And so that's it. So if you understand that aspect, the guard is not punch proof, but you should learn how to frame and defend against guys punching. So if you're teaching grappling and there's no striking involved in any of your grappling, then you're trying to teach sport stuff. Because the other day I taught a move and the guy goes, I can't do that. That's not legal. And I go, and what? And he goes, IBJJF. And I go, oh, sorry. All your preparation and your grappling is only for IBJJF sanctioned tournaments, obviously. He goes, oh yeah, you can't. No, you can't do that. That's reaping. And I go, reaping and what? And he goes, well, an IBJJF. And I go, oh, okay. So I go, what about all the rest of the grappling spectrum, all the things that are illegal in IBJJF? So you're not going to train any of that stuff ever? I go, so you're an IBJJF champion, but you don't know heel hooks, neck cranks, wrist locks. There's a lot of things you don't know because all you're doing is you're practicing. I'm just trying to state a fact here. And then a lot of guys go, I want to start doing MMA. And I go, okay, great. Well, let's see. How often have you been punched in the face on the ground for real? Against an angry, mean, great conditioned athlete that's sweaty. How about that? A sweaty, angry, totally in shape, strong athlete. It's a different story because that's what you're going to deal with. You're not dealing with clothing and a set of rules. Now, the guys are allowed to hunt your legs. So you have to become good in your specific craft, but you also have to pressure test. Pressure test is a secret to all of it. If you're not doing IBJJF tournaments, then why don't you train neck cranks? Hold on. Why don't you add neck cranks to the game that you're allowed to do a few neck cranks and heel hooks and toe holds and knee bars? and things that our guys are going to use in no-gi, wrist locks, all of those things, aside from the fact that you've got all your other stuff too. So the fact that you add striking to the grappling makes it real, makes it more applicable for the street, because now you're dealing with a person that's not just trying to grapple with you, he's trying to punch your face.
So is it this experience in all these elements then of grappling that came to the evolution of CSW, your particular system? Because your system's now gone, it's global, it's in so many different places around the world. Is this what you brought together into your system, and what do you credit it with its success and growth then?
Well, the fact that we combine a lot of different aspects to the fighting, the weapons obviously, but so someone said, what is CSW? I go, it's catch wrestling with catch wrestlers that fight. Someone said, what is CSW? And I go, well, we wrestle, but there's judo, sambo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Catch wrestling is all part of the entire spectrum. I don't care what takedown you use as long as it works. Doesn't matter. If you're a fighter, you just need something that works. So it doesn't matter what art it comes from. We use sumo wrestling. It works. If you're boxing a guy and you got to get him down and he's running around, we use sumo wrestle. We go punch, 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 and then we drop low, and then we use the sumo to get a guy into the cage. We run him to the cage, and then we go straight into the pin on the cage, and then we go into a snatch or snag single, boop, and there's your takedown. Or a double leg, lock your hands under his butt, lift him up, turn him, boom, now he's on the ground. And so we use different aspects of different arts to, it doesn't matter. Like I said, it's a ton of stuff. And then we also have, we used to do MMA gang fights. Those are great wake-ups for a lot of people that are just, let's say all you do is fight. You do MMA and you're like, yeah, I'm a fighter. It's like, okay, well, how about this? Now you're on a team and there's 10 of you fighting 10 of the other guys. These guys are shirts, these guys are the shirtless. Or we got the blues versus the reds or whatever, who cares? Next thing you know, you go, ready, go. And some guys go straight down the middle and punch, and then you get these guys that run around the sides and wait until their buddy gets in trouble, and then they just start hammering you in the back or the side of the head. And I'm like, MMA gang fights like as real as it gets without actually taking the gloves off. Because you're fighting like 3 guys at once, and you're like, help! And then all of a sudden, here comes a guy across the ring, and he runs across, and then he's like pulling guys off and hitting them, or, choking them, or kneeing them in the coccyx, or hitting them in the kidneys. We have to be careful about hitting a guy in the back of the head. You could really hurt somebody, but the kidneys are good shots, or the ribs, knee the coccyx, or body lock and take down, or spin him off, or choke, get on his back. Easiest way to get somebody off somebody that's choking somebody is to choke him. Choke the choker. So the MMA gang fights is fun, and I used to do that on seminars at the end. I made everyone, even if kickboxing, I go, okay, here's what we're going to do. In kickboxing, I go, we're going to put our gloves on, no takedowns, only striking, but we're going to punch and kick. And it's team A versus team B. Ready, go. And I just sit back with loud music. I'm the DJ, and I just crank the music and laugh. And it only lasts like 4 minutes because guys are so tired at the end, and they're all laughing. And then someone's like, oh, I got punched in the eye. And I go, well, that's pretty real, because that's what's going to happen. You're like the best kickboxer in the room, and then a guy runs around your backside while you're beating somebody up, and he punches you from behind. So gang fights, even in grappling, we do gang fights. We go, okay, no striking, only takedowns, ready, team A versus team B, go. And that's another one that's that one's interesting because the grappling gang fight is you can't hit somebody, but sometimes you have to fight like three guys and you can only grapple with them. So your footwork plays a major part of staying to the outside and not getting jumped on, and put down on the ground, and scrambling and getting out and spazzing and getting out is very important. And then we do the same thing off, not so much a stick, but knife when we train all the knife stuff for Collie. We do knife gang fights. We go team A, team B, ready, be careful, everyone's got a knife. And it's amazing. I go, every time you get poked, I want you to count. And at the end, I go, okay, I go line up. And then I line everyone up and I said, okay, ready? How many times have you been poked when you were doing this? How many times did you get poked? This guy's like 17. I go, those are 17 stab wounds. Okay, next. He's like 3. And I go, you did pretty good. I only got stabbed once in the finger. It's like, okay, you're doing all right. How about you? Oh, I got stabbed 23 times. I was in the middle and everyone was stabbing me. And then guys are just stabbing each other so much that next thing you know, you got your own guys on your own team. They don't even know who's who, so they're just stabbing everybody. So, that's another thing is the gang fights. It's something. It's a great idea to just add at the end. It makes it super fun.
Well, I don't know if you've seen it. I'm sure you have. In Russia and Poland, they actually went with.
Oh, they do that for real.
Yeah, yeah.
They have the gladiator. They have the gladiator fights. Have you seen that?
Yeah, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy the ones I've seen, because I've seen one where it's 5-on-5, and then another one that was 5-on-5. But then I don't know if you've seen it, but then they had different levels of platforms as well. They just try to take it as extreme as possible. But they had like 5-on-5 MMA, but on different levels. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Have you seen the one where it's like a soccer game almost, where they go out and they run and charge, and they have weapons too, and they have like armor, and they just beat the living shit out of each other?
I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, these guys are like, screw it. They throw their weapons down and they're like full on fist fighting. And yeah, I forgot where that was. I mean, it looked like almost Romania or something like that. So what do you do?
You've seen this massive evolution then firsthand. Where do you see? And like you said, we're kind of coming a bit full circle with some things, and that's the nature of it, isn't it? You do get cycles. Where do you see martial arts going then, or where would you like to see the future of martial arts going, if you had your way?
Well, I promoted MMA all over Europe. I helped promote it all over to get it make it become famous, and also raise awareness all over the world to try to get guys from all over to start to learn how to fight and do MMA, so everyone in the world could learn how to compete. So there would be MMA in Poland, and there would be MMA and wherever, what part of the world, aside from Japan and Brazil, and then all over the UK, and promoting it in Scotland and England and now Ireland and all over the place, Wales, and there's MMA everywhere now. And I remember when all the karate schools in the UK changed the name of karate and became mixed martial arts or MMA. We teach MMA. Well, MMA isn't necessarily like the UFC stuff. MMA is, we teach Aikido, Kali, grappling, and yoga. That's mixed martial arts. But you mean MMA for fighting, or no, that's a different story. And then you could have classes on teaching MMA, like to train people how to punch and kick and clinch and take down and ground and pound. You could have classes where guys don't get hurt, but they actually get to train it. And I think that's one of the best forms of self-defense for empty hand is MMA, by far. But there's a difference between that and having a professional fight team of fighters that train out of your school. Now you're dealing with a bunch of athletes, and the athletes should not be training with the normal guys in the normal classes that are paying for normal classes. You don't go, hey, fighters, come and try all your stuff out on all my guys in my normal classes, because those are the guys that support my school. Could you please ruin my school and try to submit and hurt everybody in my school? That'd be perfect. So it has to be separate. And I made that mistake. I put the two together. I had the night guys and I had the day guys. The day guys were the fighters. The night guys were the normal people. And you got to keep the animals away from the normal people. The animals are the daytime. The fighters, keep them away. Let them beat each other up. They both signed an agreement stating, you punch me in the face and I'll punch you in the face and everything will be cool.
So wait, obviously, like you said, you've kind of you've had this experience of seeing these different elements. Is there anything then that you'd want to see kind of spread out across martial arts now going forward? You know, maybe uptaking weaponry. What do you think is the next thing that the global martial arts community or just general people would benefit from? You know, obviously we've had MMA, we've had the evolution of the not the evolution, but the mainstream acceptance of things like jiu-jitsu. Where would you want to see things going forward?
I think jiu-jitsu guys should be required to learn how to strike, and I think strikers should be taught how to grapple. You don't have to be a world champion; you just have to learn how to grapple. Because how many times are you going to slip when you kick somebody and fall on your back and they jump on you, and next thing you know, you go, shit, I don't know how to grapple. I'm only good standing up, you know? And then the other is group fights, like how do you fight two guys, or how do you fight three guys? What is the situation? You know, that's kind of important. And then stick and knife defense. It's important to learn stick and knife defense and awareness. And then also I would like to, more than anything, I would like to see martial artists go back to the aspect of learning the spirituality aspect, not just the mental. Mental is what? Getting strong, being strong. Physical, you have to become physically strong, and you got to get your body, you got to get healthy, and you've got to get your cardio and your anaerobic conditioning up. But now what about your spiritual side? I see a lot of martial artists aren't connected whatsoever. They're connected into nothing. They believe in nothing. So, you know, there's a spiritual side of martial arts that is completely lost.
I think one of the points you made there is really really key, and you know, I mean, obviously everything that you've said there, but it's that the kind of embracing of sport and the way culture's changed in modern society. We've come away from that spirituality and that those, like you said before, that they've taken mixed martial arts and just using it in essence of just a sport in terms of fighting, but actually it's now missing all other aspects and neglecting what was always there. And I agree. I would really like to see that kind of come back. Again, I came from a traditional background and went through, you know, something of an evolution with it. And I agree completely. I think that is what's missing from a lot of the training that goes on nowadays. I just want to say, obviously, we could carry on talking for so long, but I don't want to take up too much longer of your time. But for everyone listening or watching, I just want to say thank you for sparing the time to join me on this podcast. It's been a real pleasure. I've really enjoyed it, and I've taken so much from what you've said. For anyone who wants to find out more about you or to try and find an affiliate school maybe in their area that they could train at, where's the best place they can go?
EricPaulson.com and CSW. Just punch in Eric Paulson on YouTube. I've got my own YouTube channel, Eric Paulson, and we try to put new videos up all the time. On my website, it's called ericpaulson.com with a K and Paulson. We have an online university that we offer to normal people. It's pretty cheap per month, and we've got over 4,000 videos on there. And we have everything from all of our camps and all the DVDs and videos that I've shot. I have over probably 60 or 70 videos that we shot. A lot of those are all up there. Also camps, training with tons of other people that we brought in, and also some of our old fight practice. We have a lot of video footage from fight practice and rolling and sparring, and it's good. It's a healthy mindset, and it's pretty cheap. I think it's like something like $30 a month for that. And guys go on there and they can access 4,000 videos. And then if they're interested to eventually become an affiliate or do something like that, we have an affiliate program. And then we offer 4 camps a year. And then we have our annual camp. And we'll see. Hopefully those will be picking them back up soon. That's just ericpaulson.com. That's where you can get all that stuff.
Sounds great. So, guys, if you're listening, make sure you head over and check out Eric's website. Once again, Eric, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to getting you back on in the future to chat some more, but it's been a real honor to have you on. Thank you so much for sparing the time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Stuart. I appreciate your time, and thanks for having me on.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.